Hello, everybody. Hi, Flint. How's it going?
Well, hello there, Michael. How are
Yes,
you?
I'm doing quite well. It's been a while since we've been together, in different circumstances as well.
I've
So,
missed you so much.
yes. All right. So, what are we here for?
I think there's some kind of an epic tournament going on, and there's a ban system and everything. Is this the PSS?
I don't think so, but it might be something better. I don't know. Have you been? How have you been following around the Epic series so far?
I've been catching them after the fact. I didn't get a chance to watch last week's yet, but so far I've really enjoyed the games. Been really good
Yeah,
gameplay. Love the decks. It's been awesome.
I usually have the stream on while I'm working from home, and then I do usually try and catch them on YouTube once they go up. So if you guys are in the similar boat, you can subscribe to Wak-Wak MTG on YouTube, and or if you're in the Discord, you get notified when any of those videos go up, and you can catch up on any of the episodes that you may have missed live, as I do.
Yes, very, very nice. We live in a luxurious pre-modern world these days. It's not the same as back in 2019 when I started playing, at least. There's so much great content out there.
Yeah. So did you pick a champion for the Epic series? I know they had a little promotional going on of you could pick your winner and there's a prize to be won for someone who did select correctly.
I didn't.
Okay. Well, I'll put you on the spot now. Who I guess you get the added benefit of knowing how some of them are doing. Who are you picking to win that the Epic series?
So, um, I gotta go with my boy Nils on this one, I think.
All right.
Um, I've been chatting with him, played him a couple times. I think of all the folks in the Epic series, I played him the most. Have a mixed record against him, and have collaborated on some deck ideas. Love all the guys in the series, but I think Nils gets my vote. To go
Yes.
Nils.
There's no shortage of talent in this group for the Epic, but I selected Frank to be the champion. So he's been performing well, and I hope he can continue that, and he can take it down. So, all right, let's talk about the matchup that we have in store that will be following along. We have Alberto up against Niels, so you have a little bit of bias that might show through,
A little
but
bit, a little bit. Sorry,
uh,
Alberto.
so we can see that Alberto has kind of what I consider just like the solid three decks for pre-modern. He has Sly, Landstill, and the Rock. And while the Rock is banned, he is still two solid decks to choose from. While Niels has the Terrageddon and the Stifle not available, while his Oath Chantress that we just saw was banned for this matchup. So, what kind of things are you expecting uh, what I guess if you're in the player's shoes, how are you breaking this down, and which deck do you think the players are going to pick?
So if I'm in Alberto's shoes, I think I definitely don't want to run Sly into Stifle Knot. Alberto's only packing, I think, two overloads in his sideboard, and other than that, he doesn't have a great way to deal with a turn one or a turn two dreadnought. And so I think if he wants to pick Sly, he's got to hope to dodge Stifle Knot. Whereas Landstill, I think, just overall has decent game against both of those decks. So I think if I'm Alberto, I would probably go with Landstill in the situation. And then if I'm with Nils, I mean, these are both great decks. Obviously, one emphasizes speed a little more than the other. The five color Terrageddon deck is a little slow to get up and running. And Nils did a nice overview of it on the most recent Monster of the Week, or not most recent, but one of the past Monster of the Week episodes. And he's good with both the decks. But I think if I'm Nils, in this situation, I could go either way in terms of what deck that I want to go with. Five color Targaryen's a little less good against Sly, I think. So maybe he goes with Stifle Knot, but you know, who knows? I'm not an expert in the Stifle Knot decks or five color Targaryen. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I came to the same conclusion with the Sly versus the Stifle Knot. I think that's the most lopsided deck for in these potential matchups for these players. So I think Alberto is going to lean towards Landstill. So then Niels is kind of in a similar situation where I don't think the Stifle Knot deck wants to play against Landstill. And though I don't think it's as lopsided in between as like the Sly versus Stifle Knot. So I think Niels will lean towards Terragadon because I think it has a better matchup against Landstill and a fine matchup against Sly. I mean, I don't know which one's favored in those two. So I think Niels is going to settle with the Terragon deck, and I think Alberto will be on the land still. Though I am hoping that Niels picks the Stifle Knot deck because I don't know if you saw any of the matches that he played in the monthly, but I think all his matches were recorded, but uh, there were some really interesting just developments that he had with the Stifle Knot deck in terms of how he was sideboarding. And I think during the post game commentary he didn't want to exactly reveal what he had done because it might apply to this tournament. And the way that he kind of changed things up with his sideboard, I thought was really interesting. And given the speed of land still is slow, I think he might be able to set up a game plan to win with the Stifle Knot deck that other players might not be able to find. So I'm kind of hoping that Niels picks the Stifle Knot deck so we can seal the land still against the Dreadnought, but that's wishful thinking. So uh, m- maybe can we figure out what decks the players actually have settled on so that maybe we can talk about that matchup. All right. So we do
Yeah.
have Landstill from Alberto. So that is kind of expected and it makes sense, is just a solid choice. And I think it has a better matchup against the two decks that Niels could pick. All right. So is there anything that stands out in this Landstill deck? I guess the more recent innovations in the pre-modern world has been this classic archetype kind of pushing towards a different strategy with the um, parallax tide, but that is something that Alberto has left out, and he's settling with the tried and true classic land still. Do you like this deck, or do you think that the newer version with the parallax tide is the better version?
I mean, the tide has definitely been blowing up the pre-modern scene the last couple of months. Um, it seems great. We had a top 8 there where or top 16 at least where a lot of people, made it. I don't know. I mean, I think only time will tell in terms of, which version kinda edges the other one out in terms of having the most game. The tide version can do a lot of damage if it resolves that tide, but, you have to sacrifice other tempo and control-based cards, to run the tide. So, we'll see. I think we'll see how it goes, but I think this is a tried and true version. He's going with the one enlightened tutor, kind of flex package that we often see in, these blue white, Landstill decks, but, it's a solid choice.
All right.
Classic remodern.
Um, what do you think of splitting your counterspell arts? Is that a recommended thing to do?
I I think, if, certain people were here in the chat, they would feel pretty strongly about it. And I tend to like to use the same art. I like to showcase different arts in different decks. But I certainly won't fault Alberto for it. I really like the choices that he's selected. A big fan of the Ice Age one. Just given nostalgia, the Mercedian Masks one is a really cool art as well. And then Tempest is a set that's near and dear to my heart. So I think my personal favorite is the Arena version, but can't fault him for any of the choices that he's gone with here. What do you think?
Yeah, I only poke fun. While I would always use the same art if I could, I'm not going to fault anyone for letting them. You can do whatever you want when you play your pre-modern decks. So I was only joking. So Alberto, don't at me. I'm sorry. All right, let's jump over the deck that Niels is playing. And we have the 5-color Terragun deck. So, it makes sense.
Oh,
I think like we talked about in a little bit before, I think this is, the more natural, uh, deck that Neil should take, given that he thinks his opponent's gonna be on, land still. So, now that we know the matchup, how does this actually play out? I mean, we do know that the land still deck is definitely gonna wanna put a lot of lands into play, so cards like Armageddon are really powerful, and land text is pretty easy to trigger. The one thing I worry about is that the 5-color Terragon deck doesn't have as many threats as maybe other decks do, and Alberto has a lot of counter magic. And given that Niels isn't super fast, uh, that Alberto might be able to find all the right spots to just answer the threats that Niels presents. What do you think?
yeah, I think that's a really good point. And the version of Terrageddon that exists today is a little bit different than the version that Manos Kokinis ran, a couple, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago in the finals of the monthly, where he beat another control deck, and he was running Orum's Chant in that version. And the old Cataclysm Orum's Chant version has sort of evolved into the version that Nails has popularized, and he just doesn't have quite as much interaction or ways to stop the counter magic in this version, and this version itself is even more tuned for creatures. So I think that it might be a little more challenging for him because obviously what he wants to do is resolve an Armageddon, but it's just going to be a lot harder for him to get to a situation where he could do that.
Yeah, I agree. All right, I think our players are shuffling up, so we should be ready momentarily to start off this slugfest between Niels and Alberto. So,
Awesome.
all right, we have Niels on the bottom with the Terragun deck, and then Alberto on the top. And Niels is going to kick things off with a Windswept Heath to presumably get a land tax into play. Yes, it looks like that's how we're starting. All
I heard
right.
that's a good turn one play.
Yes. So I am going to guess this land tax is going to trigger once or twice for Niels in this matchup, given Alberto is going to need to play his lands. So is this a card that, like, I mean, Alberto is, I think, going to have to trigger this if Niels wants to. I mean, is this something that Alberto should even be concerned about anymore, or is it just something that he kind of has to say, "Yeah, you're going to get a good card advantage off this land tax." There's no way he can just like not play his lands, right?
Yeah, I mean, making land drops is so important in land still, right? He can't just sort of sit back. And with the undiscovered paradise there from Nils, it's going to get even trickier because he's going to develop his board.
All right, so Powder Keg comes down. I'm trying to think how this powder keg interacts. I guess it prevents manlands from chip damage and then also big decrees, but it's going to sit on the table for a really long time. And there are a few disenchant effects that Alberto can find eventually if he feels like he needs to get rid of that. And there are just times I think that I played land still, and there's a card like powder keg, and you just attack with one Mishra's Factory over and over, and at some point Niels is going to have to use it, and so then you traded one for one. So.
Absolutely. And the other thing that we didn't talk about too is just the land tax is good, but it's not great until he gets a scroll rack. And so if Alberto can win the scroll rack war in a way that won't leave him open to like, some a follow-up Armageddon or something, then I think he's going to be in pretty good shape, even though Niels does have the tax.
Yeah, that's the kind of the disadvantage of the Terragon deck is it has those synergy pieces and it needs them together with full effect. And given that Alberto should have a bunch of counter magic that we've seen with the mana leaks and the counter spells and absorbs, he might have more say in what Niels is doing than maybe your average matchup.
Here's my question for you, Mike. Do you think that this is going to go to time?
uh, I would not be surprised. I know, given that the Lancel deck is not that quick, and then also Niels is a very deliberate player, so I wouldn't be surprised if time becomes a big factor in this match. But we will see, I guess, as things develop, because there's no real quick way to win, I think, for either deck, and that's going to apply for all three matches, unless there was something in the sideboard that maybe I overlooked. But I think in general, uh, whenever we're going to play a match against the Turgan versus the Landstill, it's going to take a long time. So
Yeah, we're going to be here for the full hour or whatever, I think. Buckle up, folks. We're in for a ride.
all right, so far Alberto has just played lands, so he hasn't chose to interact with any of the spells that Niels has committed. And there's I guess in this spot, I think I'd be fine if I were Alberto to play a standstill. I mean, I think this seems like a board that would be fine. I don't think there's that many ways that Niels can punish. I guess the only thing is if he's triggered land tax a couple times, that for sure Niels is going to be hitting his land drops, and that might not be the case for Alberto. So maybe there are certain scenarios I can see where you would have a standstill and not play it.
Sure. I mean, he's got all the time in the world, right? He just needs to react to a lot of what Nils is going to do, and he's always going to stay probably at least one land drop ahead of Nils. So resources shouldn't be that big of an issue. At some point, I think Nils may just need to say, "All right, I don't need to tax anymore if he can't get a scroll rack in play," and just start to really try to win the land drop race, so he has more resources. If for whatever reason Alberto struggles, that could be another line that he could take. But we'll see how the game plays out.
So I do like to call Terravor Scary Terry, but I don't know in this situation how scary it is when it's only a 1/1. But it looks like Alberto says that's going to be a problem at some point in the game, and he's going to get rid of it with the Swords to Plowshares.
Scary Terry
Yes.
has left the combat life and has gone to work on the farm.
Yes.
Live out his days.
Alright. So if Alberto is getting another land here, is he doing this end of turn? Oh, he must have impulse then. I'm trying to think what spell that he'd be
Yeah.
casting at the end of turn. I'm like, I don't think he has accumulated knowledge. Oh, no, he's not. He just so is that just indicating that he doesn't want to draw more land?
Maybe. Yeah.
That's always like the little things that I look for in terms of the timing of fetches when we don't have like tap lands to go fetch. That the timing of whenever you use your fetch land seems to give away a little bit. So he does follow up with a fairy conclave. So that's actually at least something that while they just might be doing draw go, Alberto at least can threaten Niels' life total with he has to use 3 mana to do it every turn. So maybe he's not in a position where he feels comfortable doing that because of something like an Armageddon that might come down. But eventually he can pressure Niels. So,
Absolutely. He doesn't have any portents or other like shuffle effects here, right? Like, if he'd impulsed earlier and put some cards he really wanted to draw on the bottom, then that's another reason to crack. But we'll see. We have a
correct.
question here from Anton. Is there going to be a PSS season this spring or in the fall? And you and I have talked about this. Um, where did we end up? Are we thinking fall?
I don't know if we ever settled on anything. I know that we uh, definitely were ready to take a little bit of a break. We were uh, very exhausted, I guess, at that last PSS. So we are planning on doing more. But I guess, yeah, it would be later rather than sooner, I guess. So
Oh, looks like a follow there from Red Wolf 84. Thanks for subscribing to Wak-Wak. Yeah, we need a little bit of a break, I think, and I think we both of us have been respectively pretty busy in our personal lives. Um, I think I went 4 or 5 months where I didn't even play in the monthly because I've been pretty busy.
Frank wants to know which 3 decks you'd be bringing to a series of Epic.
Oh man, that's a really good question. I think I'd probably do Sly, Mono Blue Storm just for you, Frank, and probably some other combo deck that wins on a different axis because it's me and I love combo. What about you, Mike?
I mean, I haven't done a lot of like all the permutations to see if there's like a a good way to get an advantage, but I think I'd just be something like the Rock, Goblins, and probably something like Mono Blue Storm. I don't know. So,
Yeah.
but all
I
right. So
think.
we got a
Oh,
meddling
go
mage
ahead.
coming down. Is there something that Niels is looking to name that would really disrupt Alberto's plans, or is this just more of a 2/2 that might be able to attack a few times?
It's a good question. He doesn't really have any action in play. Um,
I mean, maybe you just need something like Factor Fiction or
Factor
like
Fiction was what I was thinking. Yeah, I was just looking at the list.
cards that might be able to put Alberto a little bit further ahead and just kind of make things a little bit more awkward for Alberto. But
You're definitely not going to name Standstill.
all right, I'm guessing this impulse is in response.
Yeah, I think if you wanted to really spike it, you could just do Sly Elves and Mono Blue Storm. Like that would be one route. But I do think Sly, is too good to pass up. And it has to be respected. And Mono Blue Storm just looks really fun and works with the restrictions of the format. Um, but the Rock is another really good choice, I think. If you weren't going to if I wasn't going to run a combo deck, just having a nice mid range controlling deck. Um,
Yeah, I always enjoy. I like playing the Rock. I mean, I think it's a good deck, but the one thing that's kind of nice is I don't mind losing with the Rock because I mean, like whenever I play a match of Magic with the Rock, I feel like there's always something that I could have done differently, and I like those games a lot better as compared to the ones where you just kill someone or die, and didn't feel like you could do anything different. So that's why I do enjoy the Rock. So so are we still waiting for this meddling mage to resolve? Is that where we're at?
We saw an impulse. I think we're waiting. Yeah.
Okay, it does merit a counter spell. So
Yep.
I think that's, I mean, like, pretty safe because there might be a spot where Niels is playing a spell and Alberto would have to worry about like an Armageddon coming down in the same turn. But given that, I mean, unless Mox Diamond, oh, I guess land Mox Diamond could have uh, created that sequence. So, but instead we have a Terravore that's come down, and this one's, I think, only slightly more formidable than the last one, right? There's just an additional land in the graveyard, so I think this one's a 2/2 right now. So Enlightened Tutor is going to find humility. So that is a reasonable answer to, I mean, all of Niels's threats, given if they're just 1/1s that they're not going to be chipping away very efficiently against Alberto. So
For sure. I wondered if and when we might see it come down. It's a little tricky because of the 4 mana cost, so it's a little early in the game to play it. How big is that Terravore?
I think it's just a 2/2. Because I know Alberto fetched once and so did Niels. I don't think there have been other, like, the only other way I think is a fetch land that I missed or discarding until a hand size with like land tax. And I don't think either of those have happened. All right, so he'll draw the humility.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's too soon to run it out. I don't know what your thoughts are. I mean, he's only got 1 counter spell up.
I mean, if you do have a mana leak or a counterspell, then I think you'd feel pretty safe because I think the only card you're worried from, maybe you could make an argument that you're worried about a card like Scroll Rack, and that could get around a mana leak, but Armageddon is, well, I
Yeah.
guess,
Well, if Niels
yeah,
drops a land, right, and he runs out of scroll rack, it's like, what does Alberto do? Like, does he counter it and risk a land and then an Armageddon? Well, I guess actually no, the undiscovered's returned back to his hand, so he doesn't have the mana to do it. Never mind.
okay.
I thought he was going to have the mana to potentially threaten a scroll rack and a follow up Armageddon, but he doesn't.
Yeah, like from this position, I mean, wait, so did, so he didn't cast the humility then? I thought he,
I think he thought about it and then
okay,
was
I was
like,
say I thought he tapped mana and it came down, and all of a sudden I don't see it in play. I'm like, I'm confused what happened.
yeah, the urgency just isn't there yet. I don't think, right? Because Nils doesn't run counter magic, so it's not like Nils being tapped out really matters, and the Terrorvore's not huge yet.
Well, I might make the argument that this is almost the perfect time to do it because if there isn't a big haymaker, like you can counter the one Armageddon that could come down, then like because if we wait 3 turns and then Niels might be able to play 2 spells that Alberto really cares about, and and Alberto is unlikely to have 2 counter spells that are available if he has to tap 4 mana on his on his main phase. So
Yeah, chat. There's one Aura of Silence in the main deck, but not a seal.
all right, so we see a Decree of Justice cycled for 3. So this will put some creatures in place. So this is during combat. So this is gonna. Oh no, it was not during combat. This was okay. So it was end
End
of
of
turn.
turn.
I was thinking that maybe Alberto was gonna make Niels decide to try and trade with the the Terravore or use the Powder Keg. All right, so now we're going for the humility. There are 3 lands, so it's possible that the counterspell that Alberto has is Absorb, since I think that's his only 3 mana one. So he's attacking with, I think, just one of them.
Yeah, there's no forbid in
Okay.
Alberto's list.
He's either attacking with one or two, given that the dice have now split to one and two as compared to three. So whose position are you liking here?
I mean, I kind of like Alberto's. Humility is great. Nils has what, one answer in the main deck in Aura of Silence for humility, and I think as long as Alberto never lets him resolve it, he's just in really, really good shape.
Yep, I agree. I think, especially if Alberto is able to either continue making land drops or like resolve a card like Factor Fiction, then things just look. I don't know if smooth sailing is the right word, but it seems like he's in a pretty good control of. Like, it doesn't seem like there's that many things that can go wrong from his perspective.
Yeah, I just think he has inevitability here.
Mhm.
Um, right? It seems like it's a little less decided in chat, but the
Because
Decree
I
for
think,
three
like,
is great.
yeah, I think the cards that, like, at this point, if humility stays on the table, then all you really need to worry about is a card like Armageddon. But because I don't even know, like, if Scroll Rack could set up a situation where you might be able to play multiple spells in one turn, but I feel like the only ones that matter is keep that humility in play and don't get Armageddon, and that really seems like the only thing that matters.
And Niels is casting an Armageddon here and just saying, all right, let's see the counter spell.
Yeah, you gotta get it out of his hand. I mean, maybe Niels is just thinking at this point if he just needs to run Alberto out of counter magic. Okay, we do have the absorb.
Yep. And how many cards does Alberto have left here? Is it just two?
Yeah, it didn't look like a lot,
Maybe
so
three? He just needs some card advantage, I think. Alberto does.
two cards it looks like.
Uh, yeah, Frank, chat, absolutely. He just needs a couple more cards in his hand, and he's just in excellent, excellent shape. So
All
there's
right.
a scroll rack. Okay.
So given the sequence that Niels chose, like that he chose to lead with Armageddon and then Scroll Rack, does that mean he thinks Scroll Rack is the more important card? And do you agree with that?
That's really interesting.
Because I think I would rather have an Armageddon resolve.
I think I would too. Yeah. I think if he resolves an Armageddon, that's one of his lines to winning the game. But maybe he just didn't think Alberto was going to counter it regardless. I don't know because Alberto's only representing one counter spell there.
And maybe his plan is just to sculpt a hand that is able to present multiple threats in one turn. But I don't know what cards he's looking to present. If I mean, I can understand like Scroll Wreck is decent in play, but I feel like the card you're trying to resolve is Armageddon at that point, anyways. So
Yeah, it's interesting. He played the Mox too, right? I mean, chat points out that maybe he's not gonna pop the keg right now, but why play it like what he's representing an Enlightened Tutor, I guess. Um,
well, he can Scroll Rack and land
I
taps,
guess
right?
he could rack, yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean he does have Engineered Plague. He could go and get too. An Engineered Plague is pretty good.
So now we have Alberto. He just played a Coastal Tower and then he passed. So I guess we still don't know if there's like the card draw spell that we talked about, him really pulling ahead. But uh, I still like Alberto's spot. I think I think Niels is going to have a hard time presenting a threat that Alberto really cares about. before he can kind of close the door in the situation.
Yeah, Niels is certainly going to have some pretty serious card advantage here now that he has the tax rack combo up. However, again, what the cards that win here are Aura of Silence and Armageddon, right? For Nils.
Yeah, and I guess if you resolve a card like Engineered Plague, then you get to start attacking with what creatures you have. But I mean, at some point, I feel like Alberto's going to have a Mishra's Factory, or he'll be able to play a Wrath of God and get rid of whatever creatures that Niels presents. So, I mean, there are other possibilities. It just seems pretty difficult for Niels.
Who has more cards in their library? Well,
Well, I can tell you if the scroll rack stays in play,
yeah. If the
it's
scroll rack stays, obviously that's
that
inevitability for
then Niels
Nils.
doesn't care about decking. But
Yeah.
I mean, if it came down to that, like if we're to a straight battle, okay, we do see the engineered plague, so this might allow Niels to start a very slow clock. But I think Alberto, if he just has infinite time, he can just get rid of the powder keg and then get rid of that. Does he have multiple disenchant effects? I know there was a dismantling blow. Is there also a disenchant?
There's one Seal of Cleansing.
Oh, I'm from Alberto's list. I'm talking about.
Yeah, he's
Okay.
got a one Dismantling Blow and one Seal of Cleansing. It
Okay.
looks
So
like
he's got two effects in the main. So
correct.
if he got rid of both of those, then he could. Well, I guess actually. Well, I was gonna say he can make angels, but there is humility in play, so they're just ones. But at least they wouldn't die to engineer plague. So it would be a very not very cost effective way of doing it. But it. I mean, at some point, it doesn't really matter how you win if you've got firm control of the game. All right. So we do see a seal of cleansing come down. Do you think Alberto, so he doesn't fire it off. Does that mean he's going to leave the scroll rack and play indefinitely? I mean, I guess because what other cards are you looking to use that seal cleansing on? I mean, it could be the combination of Engineer Plague and Powder Keg, but I feel like that's almost just like committing a lot of resources. It might just be easier just to get rid of the scroll rack and kind of play the long game. Try and kill him with Mishra's Factories or Fairy Conclaves.
Yeah, Conclave is definitely good.
All right, so it looks like Niels is attempting to cast Enlighten Tutor. And I think it's resolving given that he's picked up his deck. So what is the most punishing thing that Niels can do from this position? Did he, did he not get a card?
I didn't see.
I didn't see a card revealed. Was this just shuffle your deck for scroll rack?
Could be.
I mean, but land taxes are going to trigger, right? I mean, all right. I'm not sure if I missed something, but it seemed like the online tutor was just to shuffle. He definitely has cards left to get. I mean, there's Mox Diamonds and Scroll
When
Rack
when did
and
he when
Land
did he
Tax.
when did he play the tutor? Was it end of turn? Because he just dropped a scroll rack. Or did he get a scroll rack and then just use the scroll rack to draw it immediately?
Well, I guess I just when after he shuffled, I didn't see a card like face up or a card like placed on top. Maybe I missed it, but
I think it looks like he may have tutored, activated rack, played the rack that he tutored for.
okay.
That's based on what mana are tapped there.
All right. So his Niels' board is widened. He has two land tax, two scroll racks, and then a couple of one-ones thanks to humility.
Hmm.
All right. So we have. So this was a degree that was cast, right? No.
No, it
Wait.
was
Oh, no,
cycle.
no, no, no. The engineer plague is gone. Okay, that was with the seal. Okay, so now we have 3 soldiers. Okay, 3 1/1s against the 2 1/1s that Niels has. All right, now I'm understanding things. Okay.
We got there. Okay.
All right. But it seems like a fine spot for a standstill. I mean, like, you also have the creatures, and then, I mean, Fairy Conclave should be able to get in there soon too.
Yeah, the con
I guess you wouldn't wanna do that because then that just makes Powder Keg really valuable to get both the land and
and the
the
creatures.
tokens, so I think you're gonna have to wait on activating the Fairy Conclave.
Yeah, that's the long game. And certainly Nils does have answers for the conclave and the four swords to plowshares in his deck as well. Um, I mean, this is just such a grind.
Alright, so we got land tax, getting 3 lands. So the current amount of mana that Nils has is 8, is what I'm seeing. So we are at the point. I mean, there are only 2 Armageddons left in the deck, correct? There's 3 in the list, and then
It's
1
three
has
in the
been
list.
countered. So, because I mean, I feel like it'd be pretty optimistic. I guess, I mean, Alberto's never. I guess he cycled the Decree of Justice to get an extra card, but there's never been that factor fiction that we talked about to really, because Alberto still is somewhat low on cards in his hand, I believe. All right, we got a lot of mana tapped here.
Oh yeah.
Standstill. Okay, Armageddon's getting cast. Standstill will break. Alberto will find 3 new cards. I have to imagine he's pretty likely to have a counterspell. But with 3 mana floating at least, Mana Leak is not one of them. I guess Niels has kind of have to. Okay, so there's a counterspell. But I was gonna say he has to float his mana. Not that it's really any downside to really tapping out. It's not like Alberto can really punish. But given that he wants to indicate playing a spell after the Armageddon, he has to float the mana in case it does resolve.
For sure. I mean, is there a world where Nils just tries to burn Alberto out of all of his counter magic and then drop that aura of silence to take out humility?
Yes, I mean, because you can pretty easily play around Mana Leak just by having enough mana in play. And so there's the 4 counter spells and the 2 absorbs.
I mean, that's
Uh,
it, right?
yeah, I think so.
And the must counters for Alberto are obviously the Armageddons, and we've seen two so far.
Yeah, 2 Armageddons have been countered.
But other than that, I guess he doesn't. The Aura of Sense is the only other must counter. So as long as Alberto can continue to find those counter spells, he should be okay. But Niels does have a line. Yeah, I agree with Chad. This is looking like a 1-0. Like, I don't know if the players can play any faster, but it's not looking like we're going to see much of a game two here.
I don't know. I mean, like, we've gone we're yeah, I mean, I think we'll get to game 2. I don't know if we'll finish it, but uh it's an interesting dynamic that you always have to play at a certain pace or then kind of adjust and not only play at a pace, or you might just make different strategic decisions that you have to make more aggressive lines to try and win the game in a shorter amount of time, which
Mhm.
is sometimes really interesting in certain decks and can provide some pretty cool games. But yeah, I'm just looking at Alberto, and looks like his list it could be depleted of the counter magic. Yeah, because there's not a forbid. They're also, I guess, there's only two degree justice, and we've seen both of those.
Yep.
So uh, he's a little bit threat light. I guess. Okay, so we do see aura silence. So let's say this resolves. You can immediately take out humility.
Yep.
Werebear is a 4/4. I don't know how big the Terravore is.
It'll be it'll be big. I mean, this is a must answer for Alberto. I mean, he just has to counter it.
Well, he didn't counter it. But
Oh wow,
he's gonna cast Source of Plowshares in response to the humility leaving, so that
only one life.
yeah, Niels gains less life.
Well, it just got interesting, everybody.
Yes. So now we have a 4/4 against 3/1/1s. And a wasteland is an answer to either Fairy Conclave or future Mistress Factories. All right, well, and here's a Pyroclasm that will take care of the 3/1/1s.
All right,
So now there's a clock. A 4/4, and Alberto's at 16, so
comes the big bad bear. And where is that bear, you might ask? It's on Nils' side of the table.
all right, is there, I mean, I feel like there could just be like a Wrath of God or something to get rid of the Werebear. But even if that happens, if Niels has the Scroll Rack land tax going, it's like then each creature he finds is somewhat reasonable. Like each werebear is a big deal. And I don't know how
Well,
much he'd worry about meddling mage, but
the other thing here too is Alberto's out of threats now, right? Like he's used both his decrees and all he has is manlands, and Nils has 4 wastelands and 4 swords to plowshares in his deck. So he has like legitimate answers for the Alberto's manlands.
yeah, if he gets rid of, yeah, he can't do much about the wastelands other than like he does have a dust bowl, but um, so maybe he has to find dust bowl before he's committing his mistress factories. But I guess dust bowl is only going to be able to take out at most 2 wastelands. Like if one's tapped and he's able to get rid of a tapped one, and then the other one blow it up. And yeah, it's not like because of the powder keg, it's hard for Alberto to, well, and the wasteland, I guess, to really amount any pressure to try and race this werebear. All right, maybe we gave too much credit to the landstill deck of being able to completely lock out all the threats of Nils.
I mean, maybe I think Alberto got a little unlucky just not having the counter magic. I mean, he didn't see any factor fictions to sort of filter his hand a little bit better, right? But he did get a standstill activation. Um,
All right, there's a meddling mage. If this is resolving, what are you naming from Nils? Are you naming? Oh, he's thinking
um,
about it. Okay, he settles for Wrath of God.
yeah,
So
there's 3 in Alberto's list, so I
yeah,
think that's legit. And we've
I think
already seen 2 swords from Alberto.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think the other card it would either be Wrath of God or Factor Fiction. I think from that spot.
yeah, it's smart. I mean, if anything, he's going to make Alberto work for it. It'd be a 2 for 2 instead of a 2 for 1. All
Okay, we
right.
have a Dismantling Blow. So if you're not familiar with this one, it's a 3 mana disenchant, but it also has Kicker for 2 and a blue that you get to draw 2 cards if the Kicker was played. So
Oh, and there it is. Very nice. Very nice. Cool card, man. I love the invasion block kicker cards. They're so nostalgic and just so cool with all the different ways that they bent some of the colors in a way that was very fair for the time.
yeah, I also like cards like Dismantling Blow where it's like on its face, it's just a little clunkier disenchant, but if games go really long, you get 2 cards attached to it, which obviously can be really valuable for a deck like the blue-white control.
Oh no,
Alright,
did he forget to draw his card? Chat says he forgot to draw.
I didn't see. Alright, we do have a Factor Fiction. So, Mishra's Factory, Powder Keg, Coastal Tower, Wasteland, and Counterspell. Unfortunately, Counterspell, I mean, like, it could be fine in a few turns, but he's gotta deal with this Werebear in an effective way, and what is his best way to do that? I mean, Powder Keg is does he have enough time to do that? Because Wasteland is gonna prevent a chump block from, like, the Fairy Conclave or
Mhm.
the Mishra's Factory that he has in play.
If you're Nils, how do you split this?
I don't know, so it looks like he's looking at Powder Keg and Coastal Tower. I feel like you could I feel like the Counterspell pile I'd be taking, because if you play Wasteland and waste Nils' Wasteland, then you're gonna lose a factory. But then you do have another factory to hold off the Meddling Mage, and maybe both of them could hold off, well, not hold off, but trade with a Werebear. But I mean, he doesn't have a ton of time because Alberto's at 8. So he takes
Nice
the
split.
Coastal Tower and the Powder Keg. I
Yep.
just don't know if they're because this needs effectively 3 2 attacks. Wait, 1.
Hmm.
All right. Yeah, I think Alberto is gonna need like Swords to Plowshares would make a huge difference, but I don't think he has that given the way that kind of things have been sequenced.
Apparently, chat's saying that Nils sacked the powder keg in response to the dismantling blow. So Alberto didn't get to draw the card.
Ah, okay. All right. I guess that makes sense if Niels is valuing he doesn't need extra mana and Alberto needs cards a lot more
Yeah.
than that. All right, so attack comes in with this meddling mage and a werebear. I guess. Well, okay. I was gonna say it's possible that Alberto can at least threaten that, like the fairy conclave trading with the meddling mage to unlock a potential Wrath of God. All right, but we're not even using the wasteland yet. We're using swords to plowshares to get rid of the fairy conclave. So Alberto will go up to 10, and then take 6.
Seems that way.
All right.
Post combat, we see a Zerrin Orb.
And not the matchup where I feel like I mean, I guess there are certain situations where it might come down to racing and Xernar might come into play, but
Sure.
typically it's not a card I think that is valued very high in this matchup.
Casual rack for 4 there. Chat says he's searching for Armageddon. There is one more left in the deck, right?
I mean, given the current position, I think Niels has the luxury of like if he just finds like backup werebears or meddling mage, like to add those to the table is I think is really all he needs. I don't think he needs Armageddon from this position. Which he does. It looks like he adds another werebear. So Wrath of God is the card named with meddling mage. Powder keg's at 1. I he basically needs to block both the werebears, and he has 1 Mishra's Factory, but the problem is there's a
There's the
wasteland.
scoop.
All
All right.
right,
We got a game 2. We got
all
a
right.
game 2. How much time is left? Do we know?
21 minutes about. So it'll be interesting to see if Alberto kind of has to because I guess the pressure is kind of put on him to win a game quickly, win the second game to uh, give himself an option for a tie or potentially winning a third game. And the Lancel deck doesn't do that good of a job. But okay, we have the sideboard up for the Terragun. Are there card defense grid obviously seems good. I mean, you could just talk about just having more disenchant effects. I mean, a card like
Yeah.
Ray of Revelation, just we saw how important that humility was in that game. And having a card that I wouldn't say it's uncounterable, but I mean, like if you're getting two counters spells for your one Revelation, I think that'd be feel pretty good. I guess the problem is like there's
Oh,
not that many
that's not
targets other than
collapse.
humility out
Um,
of
Yeah.
the out of the deck. So I wouldn't expect both of them to come in, but I would not be surprised to see one of them come in.
I
Um,
think I think I would actually bring in the abolishes instead because of
sure.
Alberto's going to bring in that other powder keg, and it's got game against kegs and humilities. Um, that would be my guess, but
Also, like the Pyroblast and Red Elemental Blast kind of changed the dynamic of the game. That um, when Niels is trying to resolve a spell and Alberto needs to respond with a counter spell, Niels might have a counter spell of his own with the Red Elemental Blast. So I would expect those to come in. Cards that don't seem good. I mean, the Pyroclasm seems a little too situational. Zurin Orb, I would take out. Um, I don't know if you take out any sorts of plowshares.
I
Um,
might take out one.
you could take out Engineered Play. You could take out some number of like the Meddling Mages if necessary. But let's pull up the deck list for Alberto and see what his sideboard is going to provide. If there's a dimension that changes this matchup. So a null seems pretty good. There are a number of artifacts and enchantments that Niels is always going to be wanting to play, and a 1 minute counterspell is pretty good. Powder Keg is fine. Do you like Tormod's Crypt against? I guess it would be. Is it just Terravor? Or is that the
I
only?
don't. That seems too narrow. I
Yeah.
like the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards in
Yes,
this
I
board.
get. Yeah, I guess I shouldn't say it's if Tormod's Crypt was a clean answer to Terravor, but it isn't because Terravor sees both players' graveyard, and it's very likely that one of the players is going to have both of the players are going to have lands in their graveyard at the later stages of the game, so a Tormod's Crypt would not get rid of it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I think I bring in those 6. Do you cut the standstills here?
I don't know if you. I'm maybe. I mean, it doesn't seem there seem like there are spots where standstill's fine, like, but maybe it just has to be that there's no land tax. I don't know.
I don't know.
I guess all the other cards seem fine.
Yeah, it just seems less good in this matchup.
But yeah, it seems kind of difficult for Alberto to win a quick game. Like and the threats that Niels is going to be able to present in these sideboarded games are going to be there's more cards I think that Alberto cares about, and Niels has ways to protect them with like Red Elemental Blast and whatnot. So I think I like Niels' chances better in the sideboard games than
Oh, I
the
definitely do.
preboard. So
I
I'm
definitely
not going to
do.
say it's smooth sailing or that it's just going to be a cakewalk because I certainly think that Alberto could just counter our first few spells, Niels not have any threats, and then Factor Fictions come into play, and then he can just clean things up. But I think it's going to be difficult for Alberto to take this next game. To okay, so it sounds like our players are shuffling up, and we will be starting our game 2. So we are both thinking that Niels has an advantage, I guess, in this sideboarded game. So
Yeah, I mean, those 3 nulls look great on the play for Alberto, but it's given that inevitability factor and just having access to more dynamic interactions for sure on Niels' side.
okay, Mike was asking who won game 1. So Niels was able to win. He the key turn was a Armageddon was countered, and then a scroll rack came down, and then eventually Nils was able to get rid of the humility, and then the threats that he had on board and the future ones he presented were too much for Alberto.
Yeah, and to just I think add to that too, that when Nils cast his Aura of Silence, Alberto had counter magic up, but just didn't have a counter spell in his hand during um, that moment of the game. All right,
Okay.
and here we are. I'm always curious to see how land tax players lead off when they know they're up against a null. Nils is praying for a hand of Enlightened Tutor and land tax.
Well, I mean, I don't think there's not really a spot. I think it's most likely you just got to run it out there right away. If you have the annul that he has it,
Yeah,
because the it opens up the door for many more counter spells to be available if you go beyond turn one. All right, so Niels is mulliganing, so he didn't like his opening 7, so he'll go back to see if he can improve on his starting hand, which I think is fine. The land tax decks usually do a pretty good job of mulliganing because of a card like land tax. All right, so the players have less than 15 minutes to try and resolve this match. So,
to try to resolve these mulligans.
yeah. So I'd be surprised if we do end up going to a third game that we finish in a natural conclusion, but I've seen crazier things happen. So um, I'd look for uh, some crisp, clean plays from both players if they are trying to get these games done, and maybe some aggressive lines attacking with man lands easier or early, and maybe Alberto tapping out more aggressively than maybe you typically would with a blue white landstill deck. All right, Niels
All right, we
is
good?
spinning a card around. I believe he's debating which card to put on bottom. All right, so he has found one. It's gone on the bottom, and Alberto will kick things off with a coastal tower. All right, Niels is going to fetch with a flooded strand, so he will get a land tax after finding a plains.
Yep. No risk of a null here.
Nope, coastal tower does not help with a null.
All right. See how quickly the players can play here.
Yeah, basically in these type of situations, you really have to visualize a way that you can win the game and then do your best to try and execute that plan. And you aren't always able to maybe in your head come up with the situations where things could go wrong. You just kind of have to hope that either you get lucky or that those problems don't develop. Because if you're thinking of every situation, the clock is just going to dwindle. So it's always an interesting tension when the clock is involved.
All right, so obviously counter magic being represented here. Nils is in no hurry.
All right, he'll start with a Mox Diamond, and he certainly has some lands to discard thanks to the land tax that he used. Forest is discarded. And I mean, I guess potentially you're just. I mean, I think you play land, but I guess you could say maybe I'm not going to make sure that your land tax triggers the next turn. But okay, he plays an island,
Oh,
and we'll cast a Meddling Mage. All right, so Alberto, if he has counter magic, he has to decide. Okay, so he's going to let this Meddling Mage resolve. And Sword of the
nice
Plowshares
TP.
is the name, so All right, so I think for the short term, this meddling mage is going to stay in play, and Nils is looking to chip away at Alberto's life total.
Yep. The old STP, Stone Temple Pilots.
All right, so Coastal Tower is the third land for Alberto, so he still only has 2 mana. Land tax is going to trigger again for Nils, and this meddling mage is going to be attacking, I would think. All right, so if you're Alberto, what is the vision, I guess, in a way that you steal this game? Given that he hasn't played like a Mistress Factory yet or a Fairy Conclave to apply any early pressure, so I guess it just seems difficult to even get to like turn 12, the point where a Decree of Justice is scary enough to take a game quickly. I think Angels would probably be the quickest way. Like, so you end up casting Decree of Justice for what if it were just one, that'd be for 6 mana, or two would be 8, and then try and win with those. I think that's probably his quickest route to victory. But he needs still a lot of mana to do that. So, and Wasteland will,
It's going to make it a little difficult.
yeah.
I mean, even just like a turn, I guess 5 Wrath of God into Mishra's Factory into Mishra's Factory into Mishra's Factory or something like that
Mhm.
would be a potential line as well. But it's again, it's going to take time, and it's probably going to take more time than we have for this game.
All right. Aura Silence is, unless there's an annul, this is going to resolve.
It's pretty good. One of 2 that are potentially in the deck now.
Yes. All right. Adakar Waste. So Alberto is still hitting his land drops, but land tax is still triggering, and this meddling mage is still in play. And there's no sign of a clock from Alberto. So, all right, more meddling mages. Let's say this resolves. What are you going to name?
Wrath of God.
Okay, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
But we do see a counterspell, so
All right, just clearing the way for that sweet, sweet scroll rack. But thwarted.
well, not thwart, but annul. But yes,
Like I teed you up for that one.
yes.
This is the synergy we have. Born from the PSS, folks.
Yeah.
This is why you tune in and pay us the big bucks.
I'm just sad there's no push-up lizards for us to enjoy,
If I have one request for the second Epic series, it's more push-up lizards.
or collective nouns. That's our other thing of what would be what is a group of mages? Is it a
Cabal.
scholar? A cabal of mages? No.
Maybe a lodge. If you're a fan of the Witcher series, there's like the Lodge of Sorceresses.
Okay.
All right.
A group of pugs is called a grumble.
That is very cute.
A guild of mages. I like that. I do like that.
All right, Alberto. Playing a land and passing. Mage
That's what it.
beatdown continues.
I was gonna say that's what his deck does best is land go. But so is there a number that you would be? I guess because we talked about hard casting to create justice. Is there a number you'd be happy just cycling it?
I don't know. It's rough. Is this a third meddling mage?
Yes.
Holy, that's pretty good. I mean, that's a must counter from Alberto.
Well, it's almost just that like not that it like ends the game in the sense of it prevents Alberto from winning. Okay, Wrath of God was named with that second,
Wrath of
well,
God.
third
Thanks,
melee
pardon.
mage, yeah. And so, but just adding a 2/2, another 2/2 to the board is kind of problematic just because it cuts down on it adds so much pressure in that terms. I mean, obviously, preventing Wrath of God is good too, but um, just having a 2/2 here is pretty good. So Factor Fiction.
Red Blast. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. So kind of in the spot, Niels is just kind of playing like a tempo game that he's applying some pressure and then just looking to close out the game quick. So I guess if things were to get pumped, like a card like Decree of Justice and making Angel could be problematic. So that is. Oh, it is a seal cleansing or for 4. I was like, but I was wondering why he tapped more mana, but it's because of the Aura Silence that's in play. So, but unfortunately, this is like, yeah, getting rid of Aura Silence or maybe even Mox Diamond, but you're still not answering the 4 power that's on the board, and that's really problem number 1 for Alberto at this spot.
If Alberto can drop 2 more lands and play a decree and cast a decree for 2 angels, that's pretty good.
I mean, I don't know if he has the time to get to 2. He might just have to hope 1 is enough to prevent Niels from attacking.
Based on the clock on the table, he does have time.
Yeah, there's just situations where like I mean, I would say things could go wrong, but maybe not. I guess Swords to Plowshare
But,
still buys you a turn, but
well, I mean, that werebear can definitely be a thing as well. So now he
yeah.
doesn't have the time, but
This Werebear, I believe, is still small. I think there's 6 cards right now.
I'm sure it
Well,
won't get any bigger.
if Orzhon's getting destroyed, that might be the 7th card. I believe that is.
It is, yeah.
Okay. Well, then there has to be a artifact or an enchantment that Alberto wants to play right now, right? It's got to be Humility, because otherwise it doesn't make sense to use that Seal Cleansing at that point, right?
Right.
I mean, it's still very possible that the Werebear would be a 4/4 because of a card that or Niels is going to play. Okay, we do have Humility. So, I mean, this could buy Alberto some time, not just because it makes the creatures into 1/1s, but it opens up the door for cards like Mishra's Factories or Decree of Justices to really be effective at.
Or
Uh,
just Wrath of God.
well, Wrath of God's still. Oh yeah, yeah. I guess the Melee Mage is now
Yeah.
just
Making swords and
has
Wrath
no
now.
ability, so Wrath of God is back online.
Yeah. I mean, a Wrath of God right here would be wonderful.
Okay. Well, we have an Impulse. Okay. So
Digging for
this,
that Wrath.
I think that's what we're doing. I guess I would settle for maybe a Decree of Justice at this point, but I think those are the 2 most important cards. I guess you could maybe get Factor Fiction, take 3 more damage, and end a turn Factor Fiction, and hope to be chaining into a Wrath there.
hmm How much time do we have left, Mike?
It is a minute 40 that we're at. So we do see the Wrath of God. So this is going to reset the pressure that Alberto has. So, I mean, it's good that he's not dying, but given that we have Neil's up a game and we're going to the board, now he needs to say, okay, how do I win this game? And that has been kind of a problem that we've established throughout this whole game that the Lancel deck doesn't typically win very quickly. I mean, a Decree of Justice uh, could take over a game, but Niels has a number of ways to interact it with if there still is like an Engineered Plague or a Powder Keg, or just playing some creatures to trade and kind of reduce the damage that Alberto might not have enough time.
Uh, turn too late.
Oh, well, that's countered. I was to say it's funny that that actually might be a way if the humility died that Alberto could have made angels and then um one quicker. So,
Yeah.
but I guess there's until Niels is putting creatures into play, I guess there's no real incentive for him to blow up the humility.
Chat wants to know, was land still the best option for Terrageddon? And I think so. I think Sly is a harder matchup than land still, but what do you think?
I think they're fairly close in terms of like which deck is favored. But then if you're looking at the other side, that like the potential of having Sly against Dreadnought is, I think it's just too risky. So I think it's pretty natural for Alberto to settle on land still.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Alberto made the wise choice.
Okay, so players have been notified that they are now in extra turns. So all right, now that we have a finite number of turns, is there a way that Alberto can win this? So I guess the if El, I don't even know if there is. I guess like the quickest way that it would be like decree of justice, 4 angels, and then blowing up your own humility.
They're
But
just calling it a draw.
well,
They're not even going to play the turns out. But yeah,
sure.
I think
So
you're right.
well, yeah. So
So
that
1-0.
that game finishes or doesn't conclude, but then Niels wins the match because he won the first game. So
Exactly.
all right. So as the
Okay.
players finish up, are we able to bring them in to maybe get a little insight of their thought process? Okay, they're going to be jumping in with us shortly.
Perfect. We just got a notification. It looks like Nails is in for the playoffs.
Okay.
So congratulations to him. Congratulate him when he shows up, I guess.
All right.
And here come the players. All right. Hey, guys.
Oh, hello.
Oh,
Hi guys, how are you?
Doing
we have
well.
some people across the ocean on the stream.
Yes, we were able to
Hi
make it.
Mike.
So
Long
I have
time.
been watching along every week as best as I can, but it's always fun to do some commentary, especially with the high level of players that you guys have in this tournament. So
Thanks. And I see you both had dressed up for the occasion with suit, or not suit, but shirt and tie.
yeah,
Indeed.
Looking very handsome, both of you.
thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we should learn
I
from
feel a
you.
bit underdressed there. Sorry.
All right.
Nils, I'm loving the homeless chic. It's very nice.
It's the Corona look, like when you stay at home 365 days a year
Yes.
and just working from home and playing Magic Online. That's how you end up looking.
Yeah. All right, so let's first start talking about the decks that you guys had available, and what was your thought process in terms of what you thought the potential matchups were and how you settled on which deck you picked. So, Alberto, we felt like it was more lopsided from your perspective of what deck you wanted to bring. Do you want to explain how you ended up with Landstill?
In this matchup, you mean, right?
Yes.
Because obviously my strongest deck here was the Rock, based on the three Nils decks, but unfortunately it got banned. Then I only had two other options, and uh, a Slide. If I decide to choose a Slide, then it's very weak against Dreadnought. So I couldn't take that risk. And only one more choice is to go with Landsteel, and that was my final decision.
Yeah, that's kind of what we thought that, yeah, the matchup for Sly against the Dreadnought is quite poor. And was there any consideration? Did you suspect that Niels was going to bring Terragadon because he would kind of think that you were on land still, or so was there any thought that you might want to bring the Sly deck, or do you think that the land still deck has a decent enough matchup against both the Terragun and the Stiflenaut that is just a better choice?
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't think further. It was a bit risky to try to guess Neil's choice, so I decided just to play safe. And
Okay.
land still is something that it could be good against both Terrakedon and Dreadnought. Obviously, can be better against Dreadnought because Terrakedon have many threats to defeat me. Uh, but taking slide, it was okay. Against Terrakedon, I can go fast and I can win probably. But what if I see Dreadnought? It's like too difficult. So in the end, I said, okay, I'm just gonna protect myself, at least to have a chance, whatever decision Niels makes, and that's why I said, okay, let's go with land still.
Sure. All right, Niels, do you want to go through your thought process, or was it pretty much already kind of explained that it was an imbalanced matchup and you thought Terragun was just going to be more safe?
I can just explain my thought process. There were, as Alberto said, the Rock is the deck I fear the most. I think it has the best matchup overall against my 3 decks. And also, I know that Alberto is a very proficient Rock player, so I also like I'm fearing him playing the Rock more than I'm fearing him playing the other 2 decks. So it was both a decision of the matchup, but also how I know Alberto as a player. And then when the band was made, I was actually a bit surprised by having Enchantress banned because I thought Alberto would ban my Terrageddon. So I was kind of planning against that. And that's also the reason why I chose to ban the Rock, because Pernicious Steed is really good against Enchantress, and I only play 1 Karmic Justice in the sideboard to handle it. So, and I wanted to have the option of playing Enchantress, but then Enchantress was banned. So yeah, so then I had the Terrageddon option there, which I didn't expect to. And I am from Terrageddon is the deck I play the most, which most of you already know. So I'm very comfortable playing the land still matchup, but I also kind of fear playing it in these time rounds because it's so hard to make 3 rounds. I don't think it's possible actually to make 3 rounds unless some game is very loop-sided and one player scoops. So, but I figured my matchup game 1 is pretty good, so I think I'm favored game 1, which will put me a bit ahead. So game 2 will be difficult, but I figured like then yeah, I thought it would be basically a best of 2 match if Alberto choose land still, and I felt a bit favored just because I have a bit better game 1, I think, because the answers come from the sideboard. So that was the thought process there. I was also debating playing the Dreadnought because, as Alberto said, it has a pretty good matchup against Sly, and it has I think it's an okay matchup against Landstill as well. So it was a bit if I wanted to. So I felt that I was given the option of either playing the best deck that would have the overall kind of best matchup, which was Terrageddon, but that also had the most likelihood of being a draw, or I could play the Dreadnought deck that would most likely end the game either way, but overall a bit weaker matchup. So in the end, I decided for Terrageddon, and that's basically I did some calculations which I actually discussed with Linyaki, and I just calculated the expected points from the overall matchup with all 4 possible outcomes. When I figured I would get 1 point, sorry, 0.1 more point playing Terrageddon than than playing Dreadnought. So it was very analytical choice actually.
Right. So it just came down to numbers at that point and predicted outcome.
Yeah,
Okay.
I keep track of all my matches. So I had like a win percentage or win rate against Standstill with Terrageddon, and I had the same for Sly. So I had the numbers for that, and I had some kind of not my own numbers, but I could see some other matchups, and I did the same thing for Dreadnought, and then I figured it was slightly advantage to play Terrageddon there. So that
Fair
was
enough.
the
I have a
Yeah,
I have a
the
quick
choice.
question
good one.
for I have a quick question for Alberto. Alberto, we were wondering in that first game, things were looking pretty good for you for a while there, but it seemed like you just couldn't get enough card advantage to make sure you had your hand filled with counter
Exactly,
spells.
exactly.
What were you kind of? Is that was what you were kind of hoping to do? Was just dig and dig just to make sure he couldn't land that aura of
Yeah,
silence, or
yeah, that was the key of that game. I was in a very good position, but unfortunately, I wasn't able to draw any draw spell. I was wondering and asking myself where I have my standstills, where I have my factor frictions. None of them came, and then I gave him enough turns to recover and to finally defeat me.
Mm.
But this is the game.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because when we look at
I was spinning my wheels there in game 1. I needed to overload his mana. I cannot play like one single threat at a time. I need to set up a turn, which I did there with the Armageddon into the scroll rack. I needed to overload his mana, and so I basically used the Armageddon as a 4 mana duress for a counter spell, which is fine because
so that turn,
I
yes,
had the
like
mana to do it.
you would have rather resolved a scroll rack in the position than Armageddon, because when we were thinking
Yeah.
Armageddon was the card that you needed, but it looks like you valued the scroll rack more in that position. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. Because I figured if I land the scroll rack, then I will find another Armageddon, which I can later resolve. So and then I had so much dead cards in my hand at that point, like 4 lands, a Pyroclasm, which I actually kept because I wanted to clear the board with the tokens. But yeah, it was. I was just looking. I was looking for like the second threat, so I had the Armageddon there for a couple of turns, and then I draw the scroll rack, and then figured like, no, I
Yeah.
just need to look for a window of opportunity where I can put both this card into play, and it was there. So yeah, I guess
what was
also
going?
having the Mox diamond there is kind of key in case Alberto has a dismantling blow, so at least get one activation of it and can kind of brainstorm for 4 or 5 cards at least before it gets taken out.
Nils, how confident were you when you ran out that aura of silence that he didn't have counter magic in his hand?
Oh, that was real pain. Yeah, not at all. But I figured I won't get any better position than this. So I was actually I was doing some math there. I was thinking, is it worth it to play around the mana lake? Because I could do so by playing another Mox uh, and the land. So I had total 6 mana. But that will turn off my. I only had those 3 basic, and I only had a basic to pitch, which will mean that I will only draw 2 additional cards for the remaining of the game. Is it worth it to play around a singleton mana leak to just draw 1 less card for the remaining of the game? And I figured I don't think so. So I just decided to run it out there and hope that it didn't have the mana leak. Yeah, that was a tough call. Not easy decision to make.
Fair enough. Fair enough. We're all kind of on the edge of our seats, like.
Yeah, I had the Errata for quite some time, but I wanted to again push it through with something else, which was why I played the Armageddon first. But in the meantime, he had drawn a standstill, so he
Yeah.
also got to refill his hand, which was like, even more cards to get through, which is bad for me.
But
And
it was
actually,
too late, unfortunately.
yeah, yeah, actually, I didn't consider that going into the matchup, but the humility is much more pain to play against than Wrath of God. Like Wrath of God, I can kind of play around with just playing one creature at a time. But the humility, that's real pain also because he can take down my creatures with just a decree, which is why I didn't attack with the Mending Mage into open mana there on the second game.
Got it.
Hmm.
Alberto, I'm kind of curious. Mike and I were talking before the match, and forgive me if this was on a previous stream and I missed this, but we were looking at your land still list, and I was just kind of curious what you were, considering when you built land still, because obviously some lists run the Enlightened Tutor, some lists don't run the Enlightened Tutor. Parallax Tide has obviously become a thing in at least the online monthlies in the last couple of months. Um, I'm wondering if you could talk just a little bit about how you settled on this version of land still and how it's been playing out for you, or anything you change.
Honestly, not really. I just took a basic land steal list. As you can see, is probably the most common one. And I especially like to have at least one enlightened tutor because enchantments in land steal are very powerful. For example, the humility, obviously, but also it can help me find the standstill that I need always. So it's like having 5 standstills or looking for powder keg or whatever. There are many good choices for enlightened tutor. And what it can call your attention is that I am only playing with 2 Decree of Justice.
Yeah, I noted.
This is not because I think it's better. I think it's worse. But when I built the deck, I really felt like playing Land Steel in this competition, but I realized, come on, I only have two decrees and I don't have time to buy the third one. So I said, okay, I'm gonna run only 2 and let's see what happens.
Yeah. I was actually considering playing Landstill myself. It's also one of the deck I like to play, but I was fearing it will be. It's at least when I'm playing it, I'm playing it even slower than Terrageddon, so I was fearing it will get too many draws. And I think if I would play it, I might actually add like a third Fairy Conclave or something just to try to close out the game a bit closer, a little bit faster. Sorry, like having some way to push through the damage a bit faster. But it's a difficult deck to play in time rounds, I think.
All right. Well, I think we are looking to wrap things up for the stream. Thank you for the insight on the match, players. I think, Niels, I believe you have locked the playoffs with this win, so congratulations.
Congrats.
Congratulations, Niels.
And
Thank you.
Well done.
Thanks.
Now we can look ahead to what is in store for us next week on Epic. We are going to be having the week 7. So we have Manus will be up against Phil. And then for the second match, Jens will be against Nils. And then we'll have more of a kind of I guess it's just a summary. So it'll be more of a chatting thing that we'll be talking about, I guess, what has happened so far in the epic. So maybe if you haven't seen every episode, like maybe if you're in Flint's shoes, that you can get the quick and dirty from Gordon or from everyone else, and they can point you to the matches maybe that they would like you to go back and make sure you see if you've missed them, because there have been
I've
been some
seen
dramatic
everything
matches.
but last week. I've seen everything but last week.
All right. Okay.
There was
so,
some good matches last week as well, so I recommend seeing that episode as well.
And also thanks, Mike, and thanks, Flint, for joining and stay here with us tonight. Has been a pleasure to have you here.
Well, we were very thankful to be invited, and it's always fun to be involved in some of the pre-modern productions. And want to thank uh, Niels and Jens for hosting this, and then also Gordon for doing all the work with the stream. It's very appreciated. It's always nice to sit back and just do commentary. I can appreciate that because I know a lot of times I'm pushing buttons behind the scenes as well. So it is a difficult task at times. So
Yes, it is nice. I can vouch for that. And thanks to everyone, obviously, as well. Thanks for the great games, you guys. Nils, Jens for the series, Anton and Gordon for reaching out and having us on here. And obviously, we appreciate all the great content that you're putting out there. Thanks for having us.
Good.
Thank you.